Torrent.
And we are live.
We're live?
Good morning.
morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Chalo, good afternoon.
नमस्कार.
Sat Sri Akal, Shabba Khair. Take good care of
बोलने में अच्छा
yourself.
नहीं रहता है ना. गुड आफ्टरनून ना गुड मॉर्निंग
Namaskar,
का.
namaste, yeah. Anyways, but please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you
Yes.
so much for tuning in.
Vishy will be joining us.
Vishy will be joining soon.
shortly.
In just a minute. He got a last minute intimation. He'll be here soon. And I think Vishy will be important today because of two things, right? One, PSU banks being asked to lend more aggressively. Could be interesting to see what he thinks of it. And
Yes.
on cue.
How's it going?
How was the role?
Yeah.
And Karnataka Bank is something that Vishy spoke about as well. So that'll be something to talk about too.
लगा लो.
So 2 or 3 things. Markets are a bit okay today, but
Yeah, flat.
but after such a fabulous week,
Last
I
week was
think
good.
we are okay with some
Now
bit
to
of
have a little bit of
consolidation.
slowdown.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's okay.
We're still June is still being a good month. 3-4% up actually. 3.3% up in June alone.
You don't want too much of June because otherwise July statistics will become bad, and July we need the markets to do well to maintain the seasonality. So that will be fun. But yeah, so we'll talk about a few things today. Maybe we'll talk about the banks first,
Yes.
or maybe we can talk about the banks after Sajeet is gone. The
Torrent is there.
Yeah, but no, okay. I think we should talk about banks. We should talk about Torrent and this thing, JB.
JB.
And then we'll talk about Karnataka Bank after you're gone.
Yes.
So that me and Vishy can spend some time.
Done.
Yeah. So,
And send in your questions so that we can answer that.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So let's start with what? The deal or
Deal?
or banks?
We can start with banks.
Let's start with banks.
Banks.
So yesterday, guys, on our internal WhatsApp group, Vishy sent a message saying that PSU banks are being quote unquote, whatever, not quote unquote, not verbatim, but asked to lend more aggressively. And there are 2 ways to look at it. That one, could it mean aggressive growth? But 2, can it end badly? Now, Vishy, what is the news and what do you make of it?
Okay. So basically, there was a meeting at the Finance Ministry where bank CEOs were called in and they were discussing about future course of growth. Now, we know that over the last 2 years, credit growth has not happened that fast. It's holding at 11-12%, but of course, it's nothing close to the heady days of 16% plus growth, right, that we had. And because PSU banks now control a large chunk of the banking sector, 50% plus is just them. I'm talking about by assets. So 50% plus of the sector is just public sector banks. So they're being asked to lend more, or at least prodded to lend more, not specifically asked. Government doesn't do that. That was a problem in the past. But historically, whenever the government has come in and asked PSU banks to come out and give money, pace up their loan growth, what that has led to is initial period of growth picking up, a point where growth hits like this inflection point where it just goes up, and then a bunch of NPAs. That is a common structure of the banking sector, simply because it once you start getting excited about lending, you start lending excessively, you start diluting your underwriting standards, you start giving loans to people, companies as well as individuals who probably don't deserve it, or in normal course of business would not have gotten that loan, but you're diluting it because now your focus is growth, not so much quality. And then typically cycle here. There is a cycle of lending, and once it hits the peak, you start seeing NPAs rise up. Now, whenever we think of this cycle, we think of only the last 10-15 years where the NPAs were significantly high, right? But that was because there was a long period before that where NPAs were hidden. So when they came out, it just became like a very, very big
The
number.
AQR exercise which we spoke.
So 2015-16 ke baad, which is when the asset quality review happened by the RBI, the NPAs started showing up a lot more, and the percentages started really becoming scary, 10%, 12% plus NPAs, right? A cycle doesn't need to necessarily have a 12% NPA. A cycle can also be 2% NPA. But if you are at 1% and if you go to 2%, that's a significant jump on the NPAs. And typically when it hits that slightly worrying marker, that is when the regulator will come and say, listen, okay, the sector is heating up, you slow down a little bit, or start looking at it slightly more critically, so that you're not exposed too much. This evening, we are expecting the financial stability report from the Reserve Bank of India. Now, this is till June, but it will be a review of last financial year. FY25 ka review hoga is report mein. They will give some indication of what the future is going to look like, or at least their estimation of what the future is going to look like. It may not be exact because RBI is, known to have gotten these numbers wrong. We will wait and see what the RBI says. But as of now, any push to lend aggressively leads to riskier situations. Chances of a riskier outcome is higher.
While it's the right intent from the government, because the point is that they're trying to say that we are stuck in this 6 to 6.5%
Correct.
growth rate, and the only way to push that and go to 8% or 8.5% or whatever, which you have to do, is to do an aggressive credit growth, so that you are basically mobilizing the economy in some point of time. But do you see that over the last 10 years, means from 2015 when the EQR started and now, there are enough checks and balances and now transparencies which are built in, because at that time even RBI didn't know how much of NPAs were. But today, even if it goes to 30 or 60 or 90,
the argument is, can this time be different?
Yeah.
So it's been 10 years since 2015, just FYI.
Yeah.
Okay. And approximately यही August September के time पे ही वो EQR हुआ था. October के time, by October it had come out what was happening, right? A lot of the moats that were created to protect the system will get tested now. Now the moats can only hold strong if the incremental build on top of that has been strong, which is to say that if a bank is lending money to, let's say, a power plant, right? Are they keeping the unit economics in check? Are they looking at the quality of the builder or the quality of the company that is setting up that plant? Are they looking at whether the value of the power has been adequately priced in? Will it be able to deliver that kind of power to the local discom, and will the people in that area be able to pay? Or they have to look at all of these things. It's called a TEV, or a techno-evaluative study valuation. So you look at what is actually happening in the company, what its future prospects look like, and then you determine, okay, I can extend so much money at this interest rate. Whether those things have been done well or not, or will be done well or not in the coming 2 years, is something that will get tested. Will it be different? Banking में material different कुछ नहीं होता है. Most things are pretty much the same. The scale changes. That is the only different thing.
My point was from not just about the scalability, but also from a disclosure point of view. Because what we faced in 2014, 15, 16 was lack of disclosures, and suddenly hidden skeletons were coming out, right?
Yes.
Now the disclosure norms are much more transparent, and I think, if I'm not wrong, and correct me, the regulator is also aware of these bank-wise. I think they have a central dashboard which talks about 30, 60, 90.
But that is 12 years old now. 2013 में लेके आए थे, तो अब उसके बाद 12 साल
पर वो चल ही रहा था, मतलब उसमें भी डिस्क्लोजर नहीं आ रहे थे. डिस्क्लोजर अब आना शुरू हो गया.
Yes.
So now you cannot manually evergreen anything.
There's a central repository of information on large credit. That is what CRILC stands for. Okay. That structure has been around now, actively being monitored by the RBI, and that's why the RBI knows beforehand कि कुछ फटने वाला है कि नहीं system में, because you have a fair inkling of, okay, a lot of banks are sitting on this kind of exposure, and this exposure is looking a little scary. So let's try and
something unsecured means what they did, right?
No, so unsecured doesn't count. Anything above 5 crore, it's
5
large
crore.
credit.
Okay.
So 5 crore plus is what gets recorded. Unsecured plus, of course, the supervisory department also takes a lot of returns from the RBI, mid-quarter returns. So they have a fair understanding of where the system is. Plus, you've got significantly more alert credit bureaus. So if an unsecured sector mein, bolega. Unsecured is not the worrying part. The worrying part is corporate credit.
But abhi disclosure level, we are good enough?
We disclosure to the regulator, yes, not to the public. But having said that, the worry is corporate credit, because yes, disclosures are higher, but more opaque structures have come up. Private credit has become very big in the sector. NBFCs have significantly jumped in size and scale since where they were in 2016. So hidden exposures or problematic structures, all of these things will come up.
Okay, we need to move on.
Yes,
Because
we are.
it's 10 minutes
Yes,
that we've
yeah,
done
yes.
this.
Yeah.
Right. So this time, is this time different? Or maybe, but not quite sure right now. Right. That's the summation of this.
Yeah.
We have some questions coming in.
No, before that, Sajeet, let's get you to talk about the deal.
Yeah, means I think it's a very interesting deal, which is a combination of cash and merger, means stock which is coming in, cash for the exits of private equity, which is KKR, and stock for the minority shareholders, which is there. The open offer price is much lower than the current market price, and I think today JB has corrected a bit, 6-7%, which is there.
Second deal.
It's a second deal.
In 4 days, within the
Yeah, but this is a
price at the deal which has been done is lower than the
yeah. One reason could be that the street knows that this is happening and the stock is running up.
Hasn't happened. No, that's not the reason. But
there's no other way that the SEBI formula is such low.
वैसे
In that sense, because it talks about the average price of last 7 days or 15 days or 6 months, whichever is higher, and then it puts out the open offer.
So you're
price.
saying the buzz was already there.
The buzz is there, and that's why the stocks have run up, and that's why the open offer price is much lower than that, right? And that's one of the reasons why JB Chemicals shareholders may not be tendering in open offer, because the open offer price is way lower. If that is the case,
no, but that's not the case, and this one is the point I'm making, because JB Chemicals, the past 6 months is down 8.5%. The past 1 month is absolutely flat. So in this case, that's not the case.
Average prices last 15 days.
नहीं होगा, मतलब ये देखो ना, यहाँ से ऊपर गया है 18 जून से
कितना था?
18 जून में 1671 था, and currently it went up to 1801.
180, 200 रुपए बढ़ा है ना?
हाँ, नहीं, but the point
almost 10% बढ़ा है. Simple as that. So and data, look at the last 7 days or 15 days average, which is there. But point what I'm trying to say is that most likely the minority shareholders will opt for the merger because of swap, which is coming in, and that's good for them in one way, because you will be getting into a combined entity, which is Torrent Pharma, where the promoter stake would be somewhere around 55 to 58%, which is there. Currently 68%, which is there. So the total maximum dilution that will come in for Torrent because of the merger which is happening is around 10.9%. And at the end of FY27, by when everything gets completed, you're looking at combined entity which will have a top line of 20,000, EBITDA of 6,000, and maybe a profit of 4,500, which is still fairly priced in that sense. 5 to 6 times sales का price आ रहा है, और around 18 to 20 times का वो EV by EBITDA आ रहा है, which is I think fair.
So consensus,
I think
people will not tender in the open offer.
They will. How will you? I mean, if you want to tender, you tender now. Current price is much more than the open offer price, right? Right. If you don't want to do that, then you stay on and get Torrent Pharma with you. Simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Torrent will probably have less than 50% stake.
No, promoters will have 55%.
कैसे 46.5 का deal है, right?
नहीं, sorry. In which? In this?
In JB Chemical.
Eventually 100 हो जाएगा ना merger के बाद. It will be eventually 100. It will be part of that entire thing get merged there, and they can bring in much more synergies with respect to sourcing and everything, which is there. So JB has a mid-20s EBITDA margin. Torrent has 33-35% EBITDA margin, which is there. On a combined basis, they will have around 30% EBITDA margin, which is a higher margin profile, and a price to PE multiple, which will be much higher than what JB is getting now. So the shareholders are getting much higher margin profile and PE multiple, which is good for them.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. Just that it's interesting that large assets are not getting really bid up dramatically, right? You would expect that if there's a large asset on offering, somebody gets a foot in the door, then they would pay a massive premium. That isn't happening. It's just about at market price.
See, if you look at one of the reports came, I think is it Nomura or HSBC, one report which spoke about Torrent and JB thing, because it was out in the news, right? And they spoke about the fact that if this is entirely on leverage, then it's negative for Torrent. But if there's a stock building, then it's accretive in EPS. That's what the deal is.
Could you look at it as this thing for KKR as well, that they're agreeing to a price because it's
they made 5x.
Yeah,
they made 5x.
So
5 का 4.5 भी हो जाता, वो बेच देंगे.
बेच देते.
Simple as that.
But do they have a urgency to leave?
Maybe I would suspect that the suitors for a large asset are few and far in between currently.
Okay.
See,
So you
I
have to agree
think
with whatever
so.
price is out there.
Or a negotiated price which may not necessarily be in your favor, because I would reckon the Torrent guys also would have known that there are not too many buyers of this size of an asset.
Correct.
Cipla
25,000
supposedly is
crores.
out there too, right? Circling for a suitor or whatever for the promoter stake, what have you. There are enough assets, not too many buyers right now. You're getting it, you sell it.
Plus, what happens is that if one asset is just going after one private equity to second private equity to third private equity, there is an exit which comes into play, and that company also doesn't get a higher premium because there's always someone going to exit. Simple as that, right? And so that's something which, and getting Torrent, which is a stable parent or a stable company, and getting into it, it allows you to, have a synergy and better for the company rather than KKR selling it to a Temasek or someone else or XYZ who wants who will again after 5 years will try to sell it to someone else. So KKR might have got 5 times. I don't know whether someone else private equity would have got
another 2, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Yeah. Sajeet, you got to bounce.
Yes, I have to.
We'll take the question.
Yes,
you can carry on.
Chalo.
Thank you so much.
Is going to be interesting one which we will discuss, I guess.
Yeah, we will. We'll discuss it now.
We will talk.
Okay. Just one more thing, guys, on Akzo Nobel, etc., which is the other deal that got done as well, right? Because it happened at just the price, despite the fact that it was trading cheap, and which is why maybe there's a 1 degree of run up that has happened. Could there be more? But I think it will be over the longer term, not necessarily in the very short term, because the battle still remains between Asian, Berger, and Birla Opus, who are already there. It is not that JSW Paints has gotten Akzo, and therefore they've leaped to the top 4. I think they're still number 4. So bear that in mind as you think about that deal. Now on to some exclusives today and some stories that we marked early on. So RBL Bank is up and active today because there was a City note which opened a positive catalyst watch on RBL Bank. Keep an eye out for that. There's also this brokerage note that came in on IGL and MGL and positive catalyst watch. So those should be kept in mind. And then there's a exclusive story that Vishy and team broke, right? Which is on Karnataka Bank.
Yeah.
Now, what's with this?
So over the weekend, we did this story, which was the fact that the CEO of the bank had resigned.
Please do.
Please. Karnataka में पहुंचे ही थे.
बताओ.
Mumbai से Karnataka पहुंचे.
So on Saturday, the story came out.
Yes, you broke it.
Yeah. So our CEO of the bank, Shri Krishnan Sarma, ex-Geo Payments Bank and HDFC Bank historically, he had resigned suddenly.
Sorry, you're fine with Hersh giving you cold.
Right? yeah. मेरे पास already है चलेगा. So he quit, and what we had learned was this was linked to previous disclosures by the bank around the issues that their auditors had pointed out, and on May 14th when the results came. The auditors had said that the management of the bank, which was essentially the CEO and the ED, they had spent some money that they were not allowed to spend. And therefore, now the CEO and ED will pay us back that 37 lakh rupees. It's a very small amount. Having said that, there's a problem with the governance structure, how a management can end up writing on checks without checking on whether they're allowed to write or not. To the analysts, the management said, okay, this happened because there was some interpretational ambiguity. That is what.
Is there ambiguity on that intentional ambiguity? Is the point.
So we were when I read it, I was not entirely sure what the hell he's talking about, because how can there be interpretational ambiguity? Anyway, he said what he said. Now, when we got to know, of course, I called the chairman of the bank and I asked him, has it happened? He said, I'm not going to speak about this. Please don't call me. Then I got to know from some sources, okay, hua hai. Shekhar Rao, the ED of the bank, has also quit. Now, in their resignation letters, which are put out on the exchanges, right? Most of these senior execs' resignation letters have to be released to the public. In both those letters, they say personal reasons. It's because we want to shift our base out of Mangalore. We don't want to work in Mangalore. The ED's letter says, I did not know that I had to move to Mangalore at the time when I took up this appointment. And I don't think this is working out for me, so I'm going to leave, right? And the CEO says, I want to shift my base back to Bombay. You take a role in a bank that is 100 years old, has been Mangalore headquartered, and then you say, "Mujhe pata nahi tha, mujhe Mangalore jana," and that I don't buy that reason. But anyway, the core of the reason seems to be that these governance issues sort of blew up into slightly something more serious. And that is why the CEO and the ED have both quit in quick succession. 15 July को CEO चला जाएगा, 31st July को ED चला जाएगा. The bank has elevated a chief operating officer. They are on the lookout for a new CEO, but yeah, bit of an interesting story.
बांसुरी कैसे बजेगी? बांस तो नहीं रहेगा.
बांस तो नहीं रहेगा. But see, with this bank, na, I was just looking at some numbers and I was speaking with people actually, experts who've been recommending this stock actually. And what they said is that इसने तो ऐसा भी कुछ किया नहीं था इस बैंक में. The CEO himself has not done anything that is material. So it's not like it's a big loss for anybody. He came in April of 23, so 2 full financial years he's been at the bank. Profit has grown about 4% in this period. I was just looking at the loan growth, I think about 7% CAGR. Deposit growth भी ऐसे कुछ 8%. It's not like some big turnaround has happened at the bank. It's not. Karnataka Bank is a private bank, just FYI. It's an old generation private sector bank. And the CEO has come from the more modern private background, not achieved anything material. So, to people who are recommending this stock, it's a good buy.
HDFC, right?
बहुत पहले. But last was Jio Payments Bank. That was his big assignment.
Sometimes names can be deceptive.
Yes.
Karnataka Bank you would think is a PSU, but it is not.
It's not.
Tata Memorial, you would think the hospital belongs to
Tata Group. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's a public sector hospital. So sometimes names can be very deceptive. Okay, let's take some questions, guys, if we can, right? Because there is a message of appreciation. Tanam Gupta is saying, hey guys, absolutely in love with this show. Thank you so much, Tanam. We appreciate you guys joining in. It really helps us. Like we say, please put in subscribe, like, etc. and stuff like that. Okay, now, first set of questions. Krishna Kapadia is asking for opinion on credit rating agencies like CRISIL and ICRA. I have a 50,000 feet view, but either of you, a view on any of these?
किस पे? Sorry?
CRISIL and ICRA.
Credit rating agencies.
I mean, so the fact is that, okay, with credit rating agencies, I have a slight problem with them being listed in the first place. I think when you start putting a profit motive on any listed stock, especially in the rating agency business, not a very healthy sign. I think numbers-wise, तो मैंने देखा नहीं है, but I think CRISIL is doing better than ICRA if I'm not wrong. The numbers. This is purely perception based.
I haven't looked at ICRA's numbers, frankly.
Yeah.
CRISIL's numbers I've looked at, but it doesn't stand out.
Nothing stands out as such.
So,
just the 50,000 feet view is this, that with the markets deepening in India, the number of bond issuances, fundraising, both on the equity and the debt side picking up, right? And then refinancing and so on and so forth. I would suspect that over a period of time, the business for these 2 or 3 names entrenched will probably go up.
So your ICRA, India Ratings and CRISIL, these are the 3 big ones. Then of course there's CARE and Infomerics and some छोटे मोटे.
So, but could be interesting, right? And at some point of time,
and
also at some point of time, people would want. I think there will be. जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं कि कहीं पे जिसने में monopoly अच्छी नहीं है. So there's so much of talk around whether aside of the big 4 in the accounting, can there be more people, more firms come in?
Yeah.
Can there be a need felt instead of the big 3, right, or the big 4, whatever in ratings, will there be more that comes to the fore?
So I think the most exciting story that happened in rating agency was Brickworks almost losing its license and then keeping it. That was to me that was the last exciting story that happened in credit rating agencies as companies.
Yeah. Ayushman Lilani, what is the view on NTPC Green? Sorry, I don't think we have a view today as well. I know we are told that we'll come back with it. Producers, please note this down. Tomorrow we should come with maybe some idea about NTPC Green, and today maybe
we'll take it up on India Market Close.
India Market Close, we'll try and take it up on NTPC Green. So Ayushman,
there's plenty buzzing, by the way. I was just looking at the stocks which are moving.
NTPC Green. Acha, nahi.
In general. So, but we'll try to add this to the list.
So that is Hersh's caveat. That बहुत buzzing है तो शायद भूल भी जाए हम. लेकिन no, Ayushman, we will try and take that. Yeah? So Ayushman is also asking about Varun Beverages' international expansion plan will bear the fruition. Yeah, they've shown the mettle to expand with right metrics, at least domestically. Now, and globally as well, per se. Can they do it at a heightened pace? Remains to be seen. But if you want to bet on the management execution, VBL fits the bill.
Correct.
Right.
And in fact, it's one of those few stories in India which could be or which could take the very, very famous example of Warren Buffett of 1989, where he speaks about how Coke was pretty much in every pin code of the US. And the argument back then was that, where's the scope for growth? And what people didn't see is that there were another 200 countries where they could have grown, and that's exactly what's played out. So Varun Beverages, in a certain sense, fits that bill, because Indian manufacturing, optimization, plus having a great, sort of business model seems to be working. And CLSA's note on Varun Beverages suggests that margins in Africa will go from 10% to 17% in the next 2 to 3 years. So you'll see very sharp margin expansion. Well, you'll have to wait and watch as to how that plays out, but that's at least CLSA's view, and they seem to be bullish on Varun.
Okay, we'll try and do a bit of a rapid fire. Now, there's a lot of questions here, but let's try and do that. So, Crazy Crux is asking, what's the scope of agro products business in India? Do you think it's saturated? I don't think so. I mean, to my mind, in a market like India, except for movie chains, which seems saturated because of the other things, not too many other things are saturated in the truest sense. I would suspect that will be the case, but I'm not sure. A lot of financial questions, which Vishy and Hersh will get to in a moment.
Okay.
But Piyush Srivastava, what's happening with Siemens India and Quant PSU fund is not performing as expected? You have an SIP of 1K from inception. Piyush, on the Quant PSU fund, well, PSUs have had a bit of a iffy thing, but we'll ask Alex to take it up on Moneywise. If he can ask somebody about the Quant PSU fund and other PSU funds, you are thinking of switching where to go. I think we'll ask Alex to ask this to a mutual fund advisor. HDFC and Airtel at all-time high. Should I invest or wait? Well, and both have shown over the years, right, that no matter when you invest them, usually over a 5-7 year period, they pay back well.
Yeah.
So any view different, guys? I mean, we're not giving a recommendation here, by the way, keep that in mind. But any view on either of them?
No, HDFC Bank pe to pita nahi, because I think right now they have other problems that they're dealing with, not so much about fundamentals.
Yeah. I'll talk about Airtel a bit, if that's okay.
Yeah,
so
we have 3 minutes. So yeah,
Airtel's EBITDA is roughly 40,000 crore, right? It's a virtual duopoly business. Pricing power clearly playing out on the industry as a whole. Can it continue to play out will be the question. And if it does continue to play out, you could well see very, very rapid EBITDA expansion. And the free cash flow will literally come to net cash flow, because there's very little in terms of payments that they need to make. And it's become very chunky, right? The free cash flow, 40,000 crore of free cash flow is not what too many companies in India do.
They don't.
And at least estimates seem to suggest that it'll go more than 60,000 crore by FY 26-27. And therefore, you'll likely see that very strong expansion, which is why there's such a wide investor interest in something like an Airtel. So maybe that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, but I mean, a large India market leader of sorts, if you will, or one of the key market leaders. And during the tough times, if they've shown the mettle to grow business, keep cash flow steady, and manage debt, and still stock price doing well, then imagine what can happen over the next few, right? So, is there a bubble in Delhi and Mumbai real estate market?
According to Vishal Bhargava, yes. There is one in the Gurgaon market he was talking about, not specific about Delhi. And Mumbai, in fact, I think Knight Frank study suggested the Mumbai affordability has become better because people are spending less on EMI.
I heard about this and it was shocking.
I mean, no, but the fact is that more people are renting. That's the only logical answer to it. There's just no other.
No, but if you see the price index of Mumbai, relative to what had happened between 2000 to 2015, the last 10 years, you can almost argue that it's flatline.
Yes.
Per square foot rates haven't really gone up.
Yeah,
meaningfully in Mumbai.
Only rents have gone up. Right? Rents have shot up significantly after COVID. But yeah, house prices have not really gone up.
I'm sorry for the rental people, but in Mumbai, the joke used to be they never buy an apartment, rent it out, because the rental yields are so low. You need a rental yields to pick up a bit, right? Because that's when it's justice.
जैसे लोगों को तकलीफ होता है.
नहीं मैं ना नहीं बोल रहा. मैं ना नहीं बोल रहा, but I'm just saying.
बहुत तकलीफ हुआ है. I've just rented a new house at an adjusted rate. But even now, the rental yields are not significantly more than 3%.
Correct.
So,
they're not.
So I'm just
kind
of caveating that. Second piece is that whether they're a bubble or not, markets in general can be irrational for longer than you can be solvent. So I don't know whether you want to call that
Yeah.
whether you want to call that or not. But I mean, you go a day at a time, I guess.
I mean,
That's
live
how
in a
it is.
house that you can afford, and as long as it makes sense, do it. Otherwise, just don't bother.
And listen to Alex because he has a lot of
he has a lot of really smart advice.
He'll give you all the gyan.
Real estate?
In general,
buying versus
financial,
renting.
financial planning.
Buying versus renting. Depending on where you are in your financial journey in life.
And depends on where you're in your mental state of
Yes.
life. Because you would financially, anybody will always make a case that buying a house doesn't make sense, financial sense. But there is more to buying a house
than just
just
money. Yes.
Than just money. So I think that's the point.
Vishy and me think otherwise.
Yeah, मेरे को तो नहीं
I said, no, to each their own.
No, if I were to buy, I would buy it in a tier 2 town. It would make a lot more sense
likewise.
because price-wise, it makes a lot more sense. Plus,
Value.
it's a good 30-year later plan.
Yeah, appreciation plus value. Both.
Yeah, but yeah. So for somebody who's born and brought up in Bombay,
Yeah, you don't have anywhere else to go. I've grown up in a small town, so yeah.
Okay, last question, because it's banks, so we'll take this because we really need to move on now and wrap up. But banks and NBFCs Q1 results should be good. Devanshu Kumar is asking this. Hence, what sector should go further up? What is your take on this? Banks or NBFCs? By the way, there is one more question on banks, which is that will the upcoming bank quarterly updates show a deposit slowdown or growth? There is lesser TDS deduction, lower advance taxes, but funds also flowing to stock market. So two questions rolled into one. The second
interest
one
rate cut hai, boss. How will Q1 do better? It's already so okay. The first rate cut happened in February. Then उसके बाद June में आ गया rate cut. Early June में आ गया. उसके बाद banks have sharply cut down their deposit rates. I don't think a deposit uptick is something that you should hope for. CASA especially is not going to go up. Therefore, money is moving elsewhere in other asset classes. Just nature of a low interest rate economy, right? As far as results are concerned, I'm not sure where you're getting this from, that results are going to be good. I think results are going to be healthy, but whether they'll be better off than Q4, I don't think so. Q1 is generally a slower quarter. It's always seasonally poor. I wouldn't say bad, but yeah, seasonally poor because growth hota nahi hai. Most of the debt that you've taken in Q4 has been repaid in Q1. So things don't go materially different from where they were. As far as NBFCs are concerned, there's a lot of action that has happened in the NBFC space, especially on the funding side. Now, whether that is translating into actual debt, I'm not too sure about whether they're growing. Most analysts, I think analysts are already predicting a good quarter for NBFCs. Let's see. I would say let's wait and watch what Bajaj and Shriram do.
I will take a quarter or two to transmit and to see. And I think a lot of the market is already looking through this quarter, frankly. So even if it's unless it's a very large disappointment, I think the market is already looking through this quarter being something of a washout quarter, not something that everyone is going to keenly watch and see as to, which way it's going to move. So yeah, that's just a little bit of addition to whatever Vishy said, but I agree with him.
Cool. On that note, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. More questions next time, and we'll try and take NTPC green on the closing show today. But thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.